In this position, it is very obvious of how the checkmate will be. White has got king and bishop pair, and you can see that the position of the black king is not so strong. The king is in fact very much exposed. So how can white exploit this weakness and deliver a checkmate in just one move? White to play checkmate in one move. 30 seconds, about 35 seconds more. Make sure that you're using the notepad to write down the answer. Okay, so you have about 15 seconds more to find out how white will checkmate black in one move. Okay, the time is up, and let me be on camera to tell you something. Do not type the answers in the chat. Master Redekar, you did that. Do not type the answer in the chat. Show me your excellence in a notepad. You got to use your notepad to write down the answer. Do not type the answer in the chat. Okay, let me go back to the chessboard now. This was the position that we were studying. It is white to play and checkmate in one. Now I've already told you that the king is in the corner, trapped. So all we had to do in this position was indeed to play the move that was suggested, bishop d4 checkmate. Now you should notice how this bishop delivers the check, and this bishop here, the light color bishop, takes away the escape square. As usual, we are going to do the verification. We are going to study whether really it was checkmate or is it checkmate because I am saying so. But first, let's write down the answer in the notepad. So I'm going to pull the notepad in front of you. Before I do that, again, I will remind that you don't have to write the answer in the chat window. So here is the notepad. And in this case, we will write down that bishop d4 is checkmate. So the new guys should make a note of this. Bishop d4 checkmate. That's how you should write it. And 1-0 means that white wins. So bishop d4 mate. Please write it down properly. Most of you, I'm sure, got the answer. Bishop D capital. D is the name of the file, so of course it's small. Bishop d4 checkmate. Wonderful. And now this is just amazing, because we are now going to study the checkmate in one part. Is okay, it's one part, but the next part is very important. We are now going to study why it is a checkmate, the three-step verification. Let me say the three-step verification one more time. Okay, how to ascertain whether it is checkmate. Let's follow the three steps. Can the checking piece be taken? We will check that first. Can the king move to a safe square? We'll check that. And lastly, can the check be blocked? We will find it out. Okay, now the first point is very important. Can the checking piece be taken? This will take care of the point that first it has to be a check. For it to be a checkmate, it has to be a check first. So we will find out that. Let's go back into the position at hand. So let us find out what the situation is here. Checking piece is this bishop. Okay, so can this checking piece be taken? No. So the first condition is verified. The second condition is, can the king move to a safe square? So look at the position of the king here. The king really has no safe squares to go because of the bishops. So second point is also verified. The third point is, can the check be blocked? So is there any black piece that can block the check? No. So since all the three conditions have been checked, we can clearly say that yes, it is a checkmate. Conditions, all the three conditions. Then you can say that it is checkmate. Let us go to the next position. and this was the position that we were studying. And yes, this is our next position. All the times it will be white to play and checkmate in 1. You do not have to type the answers in the chat. Okay, I will say this again. Do not type the answers in the chat. You have the notepad with you. You should write your answer in a notepad. We want everybody to think. Don't just simply type the answers in the chat. In the chat window, you can tell me whether you are done with it or not. I'm going to give 2 minutes for everybody to just confirm that you've got the correct answer, and your time starts now. Write your answers in the notepad. I'm sure you will get this. You have about minute and 16. Some students are already done with it, but we will wait for the timer to show 0 so that everybody will be given a fair chance. And those who claim that they have got the answer, well, you better double check if there is any element of overconfidence. You've got last 50 seconds more. If you notice, black has more material than white. Looks like black has the upper hand. But guess what? White can checkmate black in this very move. About 20 seconds more. And I will reveal now the answer in 8 more seconds when the time is up. The time is up, and let me ask you if you were able to find the answer. Was it tough? No, I think it was very easy. Let us check the answer, and as usual, we will go for the verification. The B badge, very important. When your opponent says checkmate, don't believe that it is just checkmate because your opponent claims it is. So you should check. So let us go to the position. This was the position at hand that you see here on the screen now. And the checkmating move was G3. This pawn goes to G3. It's checkmate. Now let us verify. What is our first point? You should remember the sequence now. The first point is, can the checking piece be taken? So let us go back. Can the checking piece be taken here? Well, I don't think the checking piece can be taken because the checking piece enjoys the support of the king. So the black king cannot take the pawn. What is the second rule? The second rule is, can the king go to any safe square where there is no check? Look at black's king position here. The king cannot go here on G5, H5 because of the pawn. There's rook here. That's why the pawn is also defended. And the king cannot stand next to the king. So yes, the king has no square as well. The third condition, can the check be blocked? Again, because the check comes from the immediate square, there is no way that the check can be blocked. So all the 3 conditions have been checked, and because of these 3 conditions, you can say that indeed it is checkmate. And there is no symbol for pawn. I'm sure you know that there is no symbol for pawn. That is why when you write this solution, you don't have to say pawn G3 checkmate. You don't have to do that. So how to do that? Let me bring the notepad in front of you. You are simply going to write G3 checkmate, something like this, G3 and checkmate. So I'm sure the new guys, those who are beginners, those who are new to the hub will understand and enjoy this. For pawn, there is no symbol, so you don't have to write pawn G3. You can just write down G3 checkmate. 1-0 means white wins. G should be small case because it shows the file. and g3 is indeed checkmate. Let me know in the chat if you are done writing so that we can proceed. In the chat, people are saying they are done. So let us go to the next position. Okay. So here is the position that we just did. And now I'm going to go to the next position. Here it is. Lots of pieces on the board. Again, I will say use your time. I'm going to start your timer now. You have 2 minutes to do this one. The time starts. It is white to play every time in every position that we are going to study today. White will checkmate black in one move. I have no doubt that you will find the answer. Use your time. There could be so many things that you should consider because there are a lot of pieces here. Use your time. Right. I hope that you are getting it. So just popping a question. "50 more seconds and then I will reveal the answer." Write the answer in a notepad. Some students are already saying that they are done. I'll show you what they are stating in the chat window. So they are telling us that they are done. Just have patience for another 20 seconds, those who have got it, because I will reveal the answer. The others, make haste and find the answer. You just have about 15 seconds more now. Okay, now 5 seconds more. And your time is up. How was it? I'm sure you found out the answer. And by the way, this is a very enjoyable experience. I don't know about you, but as a kid, I used to enjoy whenever my coach used to give me such positions. It's a very enjoyable experience because checkmate, you win the game. But in such positions, there are so many different things for you to do. For example, there is something where people might have thought, let's go with this queen to e7, but guess what? The knight will take. So that doesn't work. Then some people might have said, okay, let's go with the queen all the way to e8, but then the queen is not supported, so the king or the queen could take. So what is exactly the way to checkmate here? Well, the answer is bishop takes h6, checkmate. This was the checkmating move. Let me execute it on the board. Bishop takes h6 is indeed checkmate. Again, is it checkmate because your sir is saying so? No, it is not checkmate because I am saying so. We are going to follow our verification process. 3 steps. Remember, let's go back to the position to study them one by one. The first is, can the checking piece be taken? In this case, the checking piece is the bishop. The bishop is delivering the check, and there is no black piece that can take the bishop. So yes, the first condition has been met. What about the second condition? Can the king go to a safe square? Look at the black's king position. The king cannot go to e8 and e7, taken by pawn, the queen. The king has no scope on f7 and g8 because of light color bishop. And of course on g7 you have the same bishop that's checking. So yes, the king has no safe square. What's the third condition? Can the check be blocked? The only scope for black to block the check will be on g7, but there is no black piece that can come on g7. So yes, all the 3 conditions have been met, and therefore we can say that it is indeed checkmate. Always satisfy the 3 conditions. And let us go now into the notepad section again to write down the answer. Last time it was g3, if you remember. So let us pull the notepad in front of us. There you go. And this time it is going to be bishop h6 checkmate. I have no doubt that you've written the same in the notepad. At the end of this, please tell me how many students got all correct answers. At the end of this session, I'm going to ask you that. Bishop h6. Notice that the B is capital. The H is small because it is the name of the file. Okay, and the hashtag shows checkmate. Bishop h6 checkmate. All right, so let us see what our friends are telling us in the chat window. They're telling that it is done, so we can proceed to the next position. So let us go to the next position. Here it is. Again, I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Your time starts now. This is indeed going to be a pretty checkmate. Try to find the answer. Now, the thing about this position is that there might be students who think that they're happy to take the rook. Is that the best move? Think about it. A minute and a half more. A minute more. Those who have got the answer, make sure that it is perfect. And my next question to the people who have got the answer already is write down, not in the chat window, write in the notepad, what is such a checkmate called? I'm interested in knowing the name from you, getting the name from you. Those who have got the move, the checkmate move, don't just stop there. If you know, you can write down what such a checkmate is called. There is a name for this. A very nice thing. Do not type the answers in the chat, guys. Five seconds more. Let us see what our friends are saying in the chat. The time is up. Yes, they are saying it's done, and kindly do not type the moves in the chat. So I'm going to now go to the chessboard and show you the answer. The answer here is knight f7 checkmate. Notice how this knight beautifully delivers the checkmate, and the king is surrounded by his own pieces and cornered. Now here is the thing that I asked you. What is such a checkmate called? It's such a beautiful, pretty mate because the king is surrounded by his own pieces. And the knight is the only piece that can jump. So there's check all right. And the king is surrounded by his own pieces. And such a mate is called a smothered mate. I'm sure you've got it and you will write it in the notepad. Let's pull the notepad and write down the answer. Last time it was bishop h6 checkmate. So let me pull the notepad in front of you. Here it is. And the answer here will be knight f7 checkmate. And by the way, I'll write the name in the bracket. Such a mate is called a smothered mate. Please copy the spelling correctly for those who are new to this term. Okay, this is called a smothered mate. Bear in mind the pronunciation. It is not smothered, it is smothered checkmate. More like a suffocation checkmate. The king is surrounded by his own pieces, cannot go anywhere. So smothered checkmate. I hope you have written it properly. And if you are, then proceed to the next position. I think you enjoyed this position. Just look at how cute it looks. The knight f7 checkmate. Of course, what we have not done, I hope you realize there's something missing. What we have not done is we've not verified. 3 cases, 3 things to verify. So we're going to do that. Let's check the first. The first one is Can the checking piece be taken? So in this position, the knight is the checking piece and there is no way that black can take the knight. What's the second condition? The second condition is, can the king go to a safe square? Well, the king could have had his own pieces not stopped or prevented him from doing so. The third condition is, can the check be blocked? Well, can a knight check ever be blocked? The knight is the only piece that can jump over other pieces. So there is no way the knight check can be blocked. Knight is the only piece that can jump over other pieces, and so obviously a knight check can never be blocked. Therefore, it is a checkmate. And the thing you have learned today is that such a mate is called smothered mate. Brilliant for knowledge for those who are new. Let us go to the next position now. I'll pull that in front of you. And the next position is this. As usual, you will have 2 minutes to do it, and your time starts now. About a minute and a half for you to do this. A lot of pieces in this one as well. You got to be careful when there are a lot of pieces. Let me ask you a very important question. So are you getting it? I hope you are. Okay. Yes, all the checkmating patterns have got names. Some day later I'm going to make a lecture on that as well. There are names for various patterns. One of them we just saw is the smothered checkmate. There are a lot of patterns. 30 seconds more. Let us see what our friends are saying in the chat window. They are saying that they got the answer. Make sure that you got the correct answer. I shall reveal the answer in the next 18 or 15 seconds now. Write the answer in the notepad. The time is almost going to be over. Yes, it's done. Now let me reveal the answer. This was the position. And it is very easy actually, this one. It's a knight checkmate. But is it knight e6 checkmate? No. It is knight f7 checkmate. This is just a beautiful checkmate pattern again. Now again, we will make sure that we ensure we go through the verification process and just don't believe it's checkmate because I'm saying so. What's the first condition? As usual, the first condition is, can the checking piece be taken? In this case, the checking piece is the knight and there is no black piece that can take the knight. So condition 1 is satisfied. Condition 2, can the king move to a safe square? Well, look at the black king's position. Is in check, can't go on e8 and d7 square because of the bishop. And the other squares, well, you have friendly pieces there. So black king has no escape. The third one, can the check be blocked? We just saw in the last position. What did we study in the last position? I'm sure you remember that. In the last position we studied that whenever it is a check by the knight, there is no way you can block the check because knight can jump. So when it's a knight check, you cannot, the third condition doesn't matter, you cannot block the check. So yes, we can say that indeed this position here is checkmate. I'm sure you got that. By the way, so far you must have noticed that we are dealing with different patterns here. We saw a checkmate with a pawn, and we saw a checkmate with knight. We saw the checkmate with the bishop and the checkmate with the rook queen coming up. Okay, so we'll see them as well. That's a sort of a clue for you. Let us see what our friends are saying in the chat that they say that they are done. So dive into the next position. Let us do that. I pull the board in front of you, and this is going to be our next position. Well, I have said this and I will say it one more time. All the positions are white to play and checkmate in 1, and your time, that is the 2 minutes allotted time, starts. Do not type the answers in the chat, write it in the notepad. Again, here there are a lot of pieces, not as much or as many as they were in the last position, but there are quite a few. The difference is that the white king is super safe, long castling has been done, and the black king is in the center. That's always dangerous. So I hope that you are getting the answer. Really hope so. Some people in the chat are claiming that they already have the answer, which is incredible. Wonderful. Just make sure there's no element of overconfidence. About a minute more, less than that now. About half a minute more. You should notice how the pieces coordinate when they deliver a checkmate. The pieces move in a symphony and then they create amazing artwork on the chessboard. 15 seconds more. Five seconds more before I reveal the answer to everybody. And the time is up. By the way, I have no doubt that you got the answer. The answer is very simple. It's Queen h8, checkmate. Now, why I said about the pieces working in symphony is because observe the role of this rook here on d1. He has the entire d file for himself. It's amazing. And that is why the black king has no escape square here on d7. Okay. Let us go and verify. That is what we are going to do. But before that, let me see what the friends are saying in the chat. Most of them claim that they have the answer. Let's go back to the board and ensure the verification is done. And also, by the way, we'll write down in a notepad. So, can the checking piece be taken? Or the queen is the checking piece here. There is no black piece that can take the queen. The next is, can the king go to a safe square? Well, these squares are all taken by the queen and this one by the rook, as we just saw. The third is, can the check be blocked? Well, there is no black piece that can block the check on these two squares. So yes, it is indeed a checkmate. Now, the last position as well, I'm sure you wrote that in the notepad, although I didn't show that. If you remember, the mate was very pretty. It was knight f7. Over here, let me pull the notepad for this position and we will write down the position in the note, the answer in the notepad. So what's the answer here? Queen h8, checkmate. 1-0 is written here, which tells us that white won this game. Queen h8, checkmate. That's the answer. Okay, you can tell me in the chat window if everybody is getting the answers right. I hope you are getting all of them. Got them all so far, that is. And if their parents are watching with the kids, I really appreciate that. That shows involvement. I'm very happy that they are with the kids and help them understand as well. Okay, if you are done, let us see what our friends are saying in the chat. I've asked them the question whether you've got them all so far. And if you are ready, then we will dive into the next position. I'm going to pull the board now in front of you. And the next position is this. Okay, so now here, if you notice, black is an exchange up in this position. Black has two rooks, white has a rook and a knight. So here, white is actually an exchange down, black is an exchange up. But still, white is in a position to deliver a checkmate. I'm going to start your countdown, and then I hope that in these 2 minutes you'll get the answer. Write it in the notepad, not in the chat. About a minute and a half left. Writing in the notepad properly is also very, very important. If you learn how to make the correct notation, then you'll be able to record your games properly. And if you record your games properly, only then can they be analyzed properly. I hope you realize the correlation here. Now under a minute left, let us see what our friends are telling us in the chat window. And they are saying that they have got the answer, they are done. So hold on, in the next 40 seconds, I am going to indeed reveal the answer. Notice the black's king position is quite odd. I think the castling was done, but the king has been busted open. The king has no cover of pawns, and that is always dangerous. So here you should notice such patterns. Ten seconds more. Okay, so the time is up, and let me now take you to the board, and I'm sure you got this. The correct answer, well, it's not rook taking the rook. We had to checkmate here. So how can rook take rook be a checkmate? No, the answer was very easy. Rook h4 checkmate, and I have no doubt that most of the students, the majority of the students would have got this. Again, I will not just make you, have you believe because I am saying so. We will go through the verification process. Let me come on camera just to revise all the three things we do when we want to verify. What do we do when we want to verify? Number one, what do we do? Can the checking piece be taken? And now this point is important because you will then make sure that it is a check. For it to be a check, for it to be a checkmate, it has to be a check first. So often it is a situation where it is not a checkmate, actually it is a stalemate, but the beginners, they accept that they've lost when actually it's a draw. I hope you know stalemate is a draw. To make this point very clear, if the parents are also watching now with their kids here, I am going to strongly recommend that you watch a video. So let me show you my recommendation. It's a very serious thing. You watch such videos. This is our channel, the Vaidya Chess Hub, everybody is aware of that. And my recommendation is that you watch this video. It's on your screen right now. What is checkmate and stalemate? So this video is going to tell you the difference between what exactly is checkmate, what exactly is stalemate, the difference between the two. So that after watching this video, there will be no doubt in your mind. And at least when it's a stalemate, you can claim a draw there. You get half a point if it is a stalemate. So it's my strong recommendation. Well, there will be one more recommendation for you after the next position. At the moment, I'm just happy that you made note of this. So parents, remember, watch this. What is checkmate and stalemate? The video on our channel. And now let us, of course, as usual, let's go back to the position that we were doing and do the three-step verification. So this is the position that we were doing. So what do we find here? We find here that the checking piece is the rook. So the rook cannot be taken. That's done. The step number 2 is, does the king have a safe square? So king cannot go on g8 and g6 squares because of this knight. Brilliant indeed. And on h8 and h7 and h6, of course you have the rook covering them. So condition number 2 is also check. Third condition is, can the check be blocked? Well, there is no black piece that can come in the path of the check, so the check cannot be blocked, and it is indeed checkmate. Now let us go to the notepad. We have been always so far making writing the solution in a notepad, the checkmate move. So here in this case it is rook h4. So let me bring the notepad in front of you. I'm sure you've also written correctly in your notepad. It is rook h4 checkmate. Rook h4 checkmate. Again, 1-0 suggests white wins. The hashtag symbol is used to show a checkmate. Did you all get that? Let me ask you in the chat window, let me know, what are our friends saying? Our friends are saying yes, they are done. They got the answer as well, I'm sure. Let us go to the next position. This is the next position. Now you have to be very careful here. Don't be hasty. There are only so many pieces on the board, both the kings and 2 pawns for white. And your time as usual begins now. It is white to play and mate in 1. Write the answer in the notepad. All the best. A minute and 15 seconds. Let me ask you a question that I love asking kids. Are you getting it? I'm sure you are getting it. So back to the position. A minute more now. Let us see what our friends are saying in the chat. In the meanwhile, they are saying that they are done. They've got the answer. I'm sure you've written the answer correctly, because in 30 seconds you will know whether your answers are correct or not. 2 pawns here. Which one to push? It's a big question. The king can never give a check to the other king. They cannot stand next to each other. So surely it has got to be the pawn. Last 5 seconds before I tell you the answer. The time is up, and I have no doubt that you all have, I'm sure you have the correct answer. There were 2 pawns here, and I'm sure that you realize that only 1 pawn, if pushed correctly, is checkmate in 1. If you push the other pawn, white is still winning, but not checkmate in 1. Let us see what is the incorrect solution. Okay, so let's go back to the board. This is the board, and in this position, if you thought pushing this pawn to c7 was checkmate, you were wrong, because that would mean that black king has an escape square here on a8. So that is not checkmate, unfortunately. So what is the correct answer? Well, the correct answer is that you will push this d7 pawn to d8. And by the way, when that happens, you know what happens later subsequently is that you get a piece. The pawn doesn't remain a pawn. So we are going to promote it to a queen. And that indeed is a pretty checkmate. So you have the queen on the board and indeed the opposition, which will make sure that it is checkmate. Again, you should not believe that it is checkmate just because I am saying it. We will go through the verification process. So let us find out. Well, the first thing, what do? Can the checking piece be taken? So the king cannot move 2 squares to take this queen. That's not possible. Checked. Second case is that does the king have a safe square to go? Look at black's king's position. There is no safe square. The king cannot stand next to the king. And indeed, there is no safe square. Checked. What is the last condition? Can the check be blocked? Black has no other piece which can block the check. So indeed, it is checkmate. And another point to study, such a position where the kings are facing each other with a square in between is called opposition. This particular situation, when the kings are facing each other with a square in between, is called opposition. Now this opposition thing is very important. It was because of this opposition that the pawn got promoted and we were able to checkmate black. Another thing is how to write this, because now the pawn got promoted, right? So how is it that you will write correctly in the notepad? That's why writing this answer is very important. Okay, let's pull the notepad. I'm going to pull the notepad. Last time it was rook h4 checkmate, and this time it was pawn promotion. So here is how you will write it. We promoted the d file pawn, so d8 was played. As a result, that means equal to, we got a queen. We promoted that pawn to a queen. By the way, you can promote it to any piece of your choice. If you promote it to any piece below or under the rank of queen, you call it under promotion. And indeed, that was checkmate. Let's make the point one more time very clear what I just said. Okay, first please write it down. d8 equal to queen checkmate. Alright, now let me come on camera to clarify this one more time. When the pawn reaches the 8th rank, you can promote the pawn, and normally people always select the queen because queen is the most powerful piece. But if you promote not to a queen, let's say you take a rook, so then you call it under promotion. There's a word for that. Okay, it's called under promotion because the potential for the pawn is to be promoted to a queen, but for some reason maybe you wanted to avoid a stalemate or something like that, you under promoted. And how to write that? Well, we've just written that in a notepad. I'm sure you've written it correctly. d8 equal to queen checkmate. This equal to sign is very important, and yet again 1-0 because white won the game. Let us see what our friends are telling us in the chat. They're saying they are done. By the way, also you should make a note of this in the notepad, that you call it under promotion. So there is something called as promotion and there is something called as under promotion. Now before we go to the next position, here is something that I would like to remind you. I had told you, I've already given you one recommendation. I have asked you to watch the video about the distinction between checkmate and stalemate. There is another recommendation I have for you, and this is also very important, especially as a beginner for the B batch. Those who haven't seen this video should go ahead and definitely watch it. It is a strong recommendation. Well, earlier I had recommended that you go ahead and watch this checkmate and stalemate. And now my second recommendation is that you watch the Scholars Checkmate video. Make a note of this, write it down in your notepad. It's a very interesting video, especially for beginners, because at the beginner level, at the amateur level, everyone tries to do this Scholars Mate. Now, why this video is special is that it will teach you what Scholars Mate is, but more importantly, it will teach you how to get out of a Scholars Mate trap if your opponent is trying that on you. I'm sure you understood what I'm saying. The video will tell you what is Scholars Mate, but it will more importantly tell you what to do if your opponent is trying to if he's trying the Scholars Mate trick on you, how to save yourself. So I'm sure you want to watch that. Let me show that to you one more time. This is what I want you to watch, the Scholars Mate video. The video, if you see, the duration is only 5 minutes and 30 seconds. It's a 5.5 minute video, but it is very informative. Please go ahead and watch that. Okay, so in the chat video, people are telling me that they are done. They can now proceed to the next position. So let me now bring the chessboard and pull the next position in front of you. This is our 10th in your case I believe it's the 9th position, but the final position then. And this is the final position where writing in a notepad correctly is so important. Here the rooks are on the 7th rank. Now start talking chess in the chess language. So I'll bring the position in front of you. Just listen to this, very important, that this position, what you will see and what you had just seen, both the rooks are on the 7th rank. So when you explain a position, when you're talking to a chess player, you should talk in the chess lingo. So you can say that both the rooks were on the 7th rank. Now the chess player immediately will realize that it was something like this. Both the rooks on the 7th rank. Yeah, I'm sure you understood what I'm saying. The rooks are on the 7th rank, and that's a very powerful thing. So I'm going to now start your countdown. You got 2 minutes and find out the answer to the last of our positions today. I'm sure you will get it. But writing the answer down correctly in a notepad is a challenge here. And you will understand what I mean when I show you the solution. I'll see you after a minute. A minute more is what you have to find out the answer and also to write it correctly. Okay, most of our friends on the chat window are telling me that they are done, and I hope that they have got the correct answer. Let me ask you a question that I keep asking you. Are you getting it? Well, I hope you are. Half a minute more. Last 20 seconds before I give the answer to you. Five seconds. Your time is up. And by the way, now let me have a little chat with you. I am sure you know that it is, of course, a rook's move, but both the rooks were on the 7th rank. So the question is which rook to move, and the next question is how to write it correctly. So let's go into the position to find out the answers. This was the position in front of you, and let's see what happens if you move this rook, which is on h7, and give a check. It won't be a checkmate because again the king will have an escape square. You give a check and again the king will go to g8. So that is not the answer. So the correct answer is that you bring this rook, which is on a7, onto the g7 square, and indeed this will be checkmate. Now before we check all our conditions and verification is done, let us see how to write this position. I am sure you have noticed that both the rooks come on g7. So in this case, just merely writing rook g7 will not help because both the rooks could have come on g7, right? So how do you know which rook is supposed to come on g7 or which rook indeed came on g7? So the way to write it is that the rook which was on A file, remember, let me take you to the position. The rook that was on the A file, that was the rook which moved to G7 like this. Okay, so you are going to write it as rook A G7 checkmate. Now before we write in the notepad, and actually let me show you how it is done. Let us go through the verification now. The first step, what we always check is, can the checking piece be taken? Well, in this case, this rook is the checking piece, and no, it cannot be taken because the rook rooks are supporting each other. The second thing is, can the king go to a safe square? Well, not really. The king has no safe square. And the third and the last condition is, can the check be blocked? We have seen in previous situations, positions as well, that when the check is from the immediate square or the check is by the knight, well, there is no scope of that happening. So indeed, it is checkmate. Now, I'm sure you love this position because of the way the rooks did their job. Both the rooks on the 7th rank, and they are indeed very powerful, and this kind of checkmate happens very often at all levels, let me tell you that. And now let us go to our notepad, because writing this correctly in a notepad will matter. So let me pull the notepad in front of you. Here we go. And how are we supposed to write this? Rook, which was on A file, so we are going to write it as rook A G7 checkmate. Notice that you cannot write just rook G7. You cannot write rook G7 checkmate, because you will not then know which rook came on G7. So rook A G7 is checkmate. I'm sure you loved this, because this is something that we had not seen in the previous positions. Rook A G7 checkmate. And now let me, before I conclude, let me ask you if you got all the positions correctly. In the chat window, please let me know if you got all the positions, saying they are done with this position. But also please, now you can type in the chat if you got all the positions correctly. I mean, if you got all the positions with their solutions, if you are able to solve all the positions. Let me know in the chat window, guys. Okay, so some people are definitely saying yes, they did get it. Wonderful. What about the others? Did you get one or two of them wrong? You can say so. There's no problem in accepting that. This was a lovely position indeed. Absolutely remarkable, because it taught us how to write it correctly. Most of them have got everything correct in today's lecture. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Okay, so then let us conclude. This was my pleasure, absolutely, presenting it to you, because we did quite a few things here. Number one, I was able to give you my recommendation as to what you can watch. There are 2 videos I have recommended. The next thing is not being hasty. Another thing is verifying whether it is checkmate, and last but not the least, how to write the moves correctly, especially when it comes to the last position, rook A G7. And also we learned some patterns. Smothered mate, we did study that. Rook on the 7th rank. So it was a very helpful session, I'm sure. Please leave your comments later, and up until next time, please take care. Bye bye. We'll meet soon.